Everyone, I just got a message from our director. He said that they're leaving the last tour site now and are en route back to the office or to their homes to connect. So hang tight. We'll start very soon. Everyone, just a reminder who's logging on. As you log on, I have been muting you. So we will ask you to go ahead when you want to talk, is if you look up reactions, please raise your hand and we'll take you in the order in which we received. And to unmute, you can just go ahead and click the microphone. If you're calling in by phone, it's *6 on your phone. Once again, we're still waiting for staff and commissioners to log on. The last site took a little bit longer than they expected, so we will be starting as soon as they log on. Thank you. Okay, should be just a few more minutes. We have Director Swanson on, and the commissioners should be logging on shortly. Thank you again for your patience.
Hi, everyone. Brandon Swanson here with the city. Thank you for your continued patience. Looks like we have 2 of our board members on. We're just waiting for the others. Our site tour went a little bit longer today. We had a lot of geographical area to cover and a couple of big sites to look at. So appreciate everyone and your patience. Hopefully here in the next 5 minutes or so, we'll get started.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody but Jordan and Eric.
Hello.
It's like we have Chair Dyer now. We're just waiting on board member Croman.
Let's see who we got here. Let's see, Margie, are you there? or Brandon?
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I'm talking to Jordan.
It's my fault.
Okay.
I got it.
Margie, is Board Member Croman having a hard time getting in?
He's probably called her for the same reason I called her. I was having trouble getting in.
What was the issue, just out of curiosity, since we have a minute?
Well, normally you just click on the piece she gives you in the email. And what it gave me was the agenda, but no Zoom meeting. So she said, well, go to your calendar. So I'd never had to do that before. So I found the calendar and I finally found where you can join the meeting.
I see.
He sent two separate emails. I think there was one with the agenda and one with the Zoom link.
I had two separate ones. Both of them had the agenda. So
Okay.
Anyway, it was a different procedure than I've ever done before. So that may be what the problem is.
Yeah, Jordan's, I just gave him the phone number and the passcode. So hopefully he'll be getting in here in just a second.
And is Catherine here?
Thought I saw her.
I saw her earlier. She's probably muted.
It looks, I did see her email earlier, but it looks like it's actually dropped off now at this point.
There's Catherine PC. That may be her.
Yes, it is.
Oh, hey, Catherine.
Hi.
Building and planning.
I don't see how you put your picture on, Eric.
At the bottom, there should be something that says start video on the
Oh, yeah.
bottom left.
Yeah. There it is.
There you are.
Okay. Got it.
I assume that next month we'll be in person, maybe?
Right now, that's the tentative plan handed down by the city council. That's of course subject to change. I was going to talk about that a little bit at the end in the director's report, but yeah, it's kind of a fast moving world out there with respect to doing things in person. But right now, the plan is to be in person in September, but have a hybrid option for people that want to join via Zoom.
Thank you.
There's Board Member Croman. Looks like we have everyone now.
Okay. So Jordan, are you here? Just looking.
He just needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, for some reason our internet was dead in our house. So I had to reset everything.
Okay, great.
So good to go.
Well, then I will go ahead and call to order the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea's Historic Resources Board for Monday, August 16th, 2021. I think we're ready for a roll call.
Yes, Board Member Croman,
Here?
Board Member Galtieri,
Here.
Board Member Hall,
Here?
Board Member Pomeroy,
Here.
Chair Dyer.
Here. Okay, thank you, Margie. Anyone wishing to address the board on items that are not on the agenda may do so now. Hearing and seeing none. I will move on to announcements. Any announcements? Hearing none from the board, I will move on to consent agenda, which is the minutes of our July 19th, 2021 regular meeting. Any comments on the minutes or edits
Yes. Just a couple of little things. One is on page 2, 2 lines above the vote on the Verizon telecommunication item. It says doesn't not. So either the NT or the NOT it's a double negative, which gives it a different meaning. So we need to take away the not probably and just read doesn't. Okay.
Thank you for your.
And then page 2, on the 200 square foot detached garage item, it said board member Croman did abstain, and it was Croman and Hall.
If, however, it is under a corporation.
I'm sorry?
Pardon?
I think we had somebody just got unmuted,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
but
So
noted.
that's
Thank
on-
you. Yeah, staff notes those. Thanks. We'll fix that.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Thank you for the careful reading. Carol,
Welcome.
any other comments, or I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for approval of the minutes?
I approve the minutes as revised.
Short-term rentals. There were
Okay. Is there a second? I think
Second.
Carol. I'm sorry,
I second it.
Gordon seconded. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. The minutes are adopted. Now moving on to public hearings. DR 21-207, World War I Memorial Plaque. Consideration of.
yeah, so it has
I'm sorry. That's again the meeting. Consideration of a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties for design review. DR 21-207, World War I Memorial Arc Plaque for the installation of an additional World War I Veterans Memorial Plaque on a Carmel stone plinth set in the soil on the west side of the monument located within the median of Ocean Avenue on the east side of San Carlos Street. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board members. Brandon Swanson with the Community Planning and Building Department. Here to present the World War I Memorial Plaque item for your consideration of a determination of consistency. A little bit of background, just briefly. The memorial itself was constructed in 1922, designed by Charles Sumner Green. It is listed on our local historic inventory, and as you all know, is a valuable part of our historic fabric here in the village. Most recently, this board did consider some other amendments or improvements to the site, most notably chains, bollards, and lighting. So this is another consideration for the board for some improvements to the site, all privately funded and designed. The project description is dedication of a new bronze plaque. It's a little bit fuzzy on your screen. I apologize for that, but this is the gist of it. It would be in honor of those who served their country, names of all of those who have served. 14 by 16. It'll be set on a Carmel stone plinth. And what that means is essentially a slab of Carmel stone angled up slightly. So as you're standing in front of the memorial in what used to be the water trough for horses, it would be right there angled up, so you can see the names a little bit better. The plinth, the chunk of Carmel stone will be supported by a vertical column of stainless steel down into the planter. In order to install it, the dirt will have to come out. While the dirt is out, there'll be irrigation and electrical installed, and then the dirt put back in. So you will not see the support structure underneath. You'll only see the plinth on top. Here's a quick sort of overview. Again, a little bit blurry, and I apologize for that, but it's a top view. This is the plinth that I was talking about. Here's the front of the memorial as you're standing in front of it. Here's a side view of what it would look like. This is that support column going down into the dirt, but this would be at grade right here. So you would not see any of the support structure for this at all. Some more images. There's a handmade rendering, so you can kind of get a sense of the scale of what this might look like. And so just going through some of the technicalities of this, our code does require determination of consistency for any work done on a historic resource. As I mentioned, this is listed locally, and it's a valuable part of our historic fabric. The code does allow for staff to make determinations of the consistency, but given the scope and scale and importance of this, we have brought this to the Historic Resources Board. Staff prepared the analysis, however, and does feel that the work proposed is consistent, but we're asking the board to review and adopt their determination of consistency. You know all these very well, so I will not belabor this point. There are 4 different standards for treatment of historic properties. The applicable standard in this case is rehabilitation. As you can see, rehabilitation includes preserving. We're going to talk about some standards here that it's consistent with. There's only 2 that are not applicable, or 3 that are not applicable, standards 6 through 8. All the rest of the Secretary's standards do apply, and the project is consistent as proposed in staff's opinion. Again, you know these standards very well, so I'm not going to belabor this point. But you can see highlighted in blue are the standards that are not applicable. The rest are, and as I said, staff's analysis shows that these standards would be consistent. The project would be consistent with these other 7 standards. So with that, staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution issuing a determination of consistency with the Secretary's standards for the War Memorial plinth, memorializing those who have served. One note to get this on the record, there's an error at the bottom of the resolution that you're looking at. We need to change the signatory block to show the HRB chair versus the Planning Commission chair. It's a minor edit, but I just wanted to get it on the record so that we can make that change if the board decides to move forward with this. And with that, staff will conclude our presentation and available for questions.
Any questions of Brandon from the board?
I have one comment. I know we're calling this base, and this is nitpicky, but I know we're calling this base a plinth. I mean, maybe the plinth concept came in when the entire lower portion was set in, but usually when people think of a plinth, I know it can be the base of a column or whatever, but usually it's the column portion as well. So when I read it, it seemed like it was something that was going to stick up before I looked at the picture. So maybe we just change that to a base or something else that really represents what it is.
Certainly, we at the direction of the board, we can change the verbiage in the resolution to whatever the board feels is more appropriate. That's an easy fix.
I have a comment too. I'm really not against this at all, but I would like to play devil's advocate. I assume that the reason we're placing this plaque is because of the 100th anniversary coming up and they want something to do at the memorial. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just wondering whether it's even necessary.
Okay. That's probably a general question, maybe for the applicant. So, and Brandon, do you want to comment on, I know part of the information we received was about the additional plaque that was going on the actual, to replace the 2 that are already there. Do you want to comment on that and why we're not hearing it? Or
I could, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was an early proposal to remove and replace the 2 existing plaques that are on the memorial right now, 2 small bronze plaques. At this time, the project is only the plaque that would be in the flower bed. If at some point in the future there was a desire or an application to remove or replace those plaques because those are already dedicated, there would have to be a higher level of historical analysis done, bringing on a consultant to make sure that was consistent with Secretary standards for removing dedicated plaques. But that is not the project in front of the board today.
I see. So that simply because they were dedicated, I think they used the term on the plaque themselves, dedicated. So that's kind of the trigger for that. That's
correct. Yeah. And you're physically touching the memorial versus putting something in the dirt as well. There would be, more work, more intensive work, potential, damage, just making sure that all the work was consistent. But yes, you're correct. The trigger was the dedication. So it has become part of the memorial at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions of Brandon?
It's like Catherine has her hand up.
Catherine? Oh, you're muted, Catherine. Catherine, yeah, you're still muted.
I'll wait till, am I still? I think I'll wait until people have talked to make my comments.
Okay, well, we still have to open up the public hearing. So why don't we go ahead and do so now? It's the applicant or applicant's representative here to discuss the project.
Hello, this is Richard Kreitman, and I'm speaking today on behalf of myself, American Legion Post 512, and the Friends of the World War I Memorial Arch, and Chairman Dyer, board members, Director Swanson, Carmel staff. Thank you all for the opportunity to present this project. You all have The project is to approve the dedicatory plaque at the World War I monument. This may be the last phase of several year-long project to restore and complete the memorial and rededicate it at its centennial. We weren't looking for something to do with the centennial. What we were looking to do was finally honor the members of the Carmel community who served in the Great War, whose names were not, unlike the memorials in Devendorf Park, their individual names were never honored. So this was a chance to present basically a historic marker honoring those people and giving a fuller account of the story of the arch of Sumner Green and the history of the arch from its cornerstone laying on November 11th, 1921, and its rebuilding after it was semi-destroyed in 1977 by a car, et cetera. So Director Swanson, can you put up those images that I gave you on the thumb drive, or?
Yeah, I can share my screen. You'll have to tell me what it is you want to put up.
Well, yeah, just start from the top. Actually, the first two we can skip because those are the small plaques, so we're not going to be discussing those. So the next one. Okay, this is the original drawing by Charles Sumner Green and a lot of this work, historic work, the names that we're putting on the plaque, I have to thank our friend Ian Martin, who you all know very well, who's done the research originally, he's the one who found these plans, which enabled us to cast that bell in Mr. Green's original designs. And he's the one who's researched all the names that we're putting on it. So next slide, please.
You have 2 minutes to go through this? Yeah.
This was Mr. Green's drawing. There was to those who served that he indicated, and there was a bowl there, which was there for many years. And then, of course, the bell that we tried to replicate. Next one, please. Oh, this was, okay, first plaque to those who served. I think you just hit the little arrow there and go to the next one.
But this one is not, just so the board is clear, this is not part of the application.
No, it's not part of the application.
So we're not considering that.
Okay, where are we? Okay, this is the inscription that we wish to put on the plaque. You saw it at the mock-up that I brought is at full size. One of the reasons for it to be this size is so that it's readable. Also, in casting bronze plaques with text, you can only go so small, and these, I believe, are about the minimum size in full size. I think I pointed out, we do want to change a couple of words. Instead of in honor of those who served their country, we want to change it to in honor of those who served our country. The last sentence of that first explanatory paragraph changing, this memorial has since come to honor all those from the Carmel area who have served our country, and as a memorial to all those who leave out the have, all those who died in that service. And then at the bottom, we just wanted to change when we said rebuilt in 1977 after severe damage from a car accident, extensively restored in 2020. Centennial bell cast to Mr. Green's, we're going to change that to C. Sumner Green. He preferred to be known as C. Sumner Green. And the names, next slide, please. Now, this is interesting. I didn't know about this. This was a plaque that hung in City Hall for so many years that has, if you zoom in, it has the names of about 54 of the names that we have. The exterior frame was carved by Mr. Green himself. Where this plaque is now, we have no idea. It seems to have disappeared along with that, the famous marble bowl that used to be the town drinking fountain. So maybe they're together somewhere. Next. Oh, and these were the so these were the drawings which you saw. So the idea is that the plinth or the stone base will be set in the soil and surrounded by flowers. So you won't see too much of that of the stone. Most of it will be sunk. The stainless steel post which will hold it, realize something. This is going to be a 3.5-inch interior diameter stainless steel pipe that will be capped, which makes for an incredible time capsule if we wish to put in a copy of that week's pine cone or anything else. So that's just a little aside. One change from the design, speaking to the John Kolstad, who cast the bell for us, he does plaques also. I spoke to him the other day. He did suggest that rather than having the plaque sit on top of the stone, it is common to have the stone routed out so that the plaque sits flush. As he said, harder to get a crowbar under the bronze, and we may go with that. Next one, I think that's basically, well, this is the way it would look. You would not see the plaque, or we hope not to see the plaque or the stone from a straight on. It'll be down below the surface of the edge of the front of the monument. And I think that's basically it. Yeah, you've seen that. And as far as the sequence goes, as we mentioned at the memorial, we have to dig out all the dirt in order to install the irrigation and the electricity and the uplighting that you've approved. And so we'll do it all at once. And we want to do it as soon as possible so we could replant and have the plantings taking hold before the November 11th dedication. The plaques take about a month to make. I got an estimate. We're paying for it. It's about $900 for this plaque, the big one with all the information on it. And we're looking forward to a wonderful rededication ceremony in November. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Anyone else wishing to address the board on this application?
I have a question.
Sure.
At the risk of sounding anti-patriotic.
I have a question for Richard.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Richard, didn't I read none of these people died in service? And I'm wondering, it kind of sounds like these names were people who died in service when I read the wording on that. Is it true that none of these, they all came home?
You're muted, Richard, sorry. We can't hear you, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there I am. Okay, so it reads, designed by Carmel-by-the-Sea resident renowned architect Charles Sumner Green, the cornerstone for this memorial was laid on Armistice Day 1921 in honor of the men and women from the Carmel area who served in the Great War and who, remarkably, all came home alive. Their names are listed below. This memorial has since come to honor all those from the Carmel area who have served our country, and is a memorial to all those who died in that service. So we do state, and it was remarkable. I mean, Ian has done the research. We've looked in we find no deaths. I mean, and these people, some were in combat. Some never went overseas. Some were in combat. I believe Harry Newberry saw combat. And so that's why, that's why originally it was dedicated in honor of those who served. There was no memorial statement. But as someone has pointed out, every war monument, excuse me, is a memorial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Richard?
I have a question along those lines too, for Richard. So I love the project, and I think the plaque is very inclusive. However, it sends very mixed messages. So it's a plaque in honor of those who served their country and in memory of those who died in their service. We've cleared that up. It's a World War I's Veterans Memorial. Yet in this plaque, we have names of people that were not veterans. that served in the Red Cross, Knights of Columbus, War Correspondent, YMCA. And while those people all did, I'm sure, yeoman's work in support of the war effort, they're not veterans, nor did they serve their country in what we think of the traditional sense. So I think putting those names on a war memorial is very confusing and sends an absolutely disjointed message.
Okay, I accept that. Working with my friend Ian, he had come up with those others. He felt, and I think we felt, we accepted that. Those of us, the Friends and the American Legion, we've gone over these. I can see your point, but these, one of the reasons he included these, and was that because it mentions a few women from Carmel who served. They served. They weren't in the army, but so that was the logic. They served. Some went overseas, and they may not have been military, so they're not officially veterans. But I see your point, and it's up to we can always remove those names from the inscription. That's no problem at all. But I leave that up to the board.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Any other questions? Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on this application? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, Catherine?
Yes.
As the wife of a World War II veteran, the sister of a brother who died in Vietnam, and another brother who served 20 years in the Navy, I wholeheartedly support this project. And I don't see a problem having the names of Perry Newberry, Jimmy Hopper, and others who also served through their war correspondent work. And I believe Perry Newberry was even gassed during his service overseas. I can hear what Board Member Croman is saying about confusion, but these are some historic names that I think can be recognized. And perhaps it's the beginning of the plaque where we honor those who serve their country. Maybe the memory of those who died is the line that is bothering people, because this group did all serve their country. Some died, as we all do, but I don't think we ought to eliminate names that the applicants have put forward for very good reasons. And I would be comfortable with supporting it the way it's been presented. I think it's a very important object, a historic object in Carmel, and it deserves our support.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Anyone else of the board wishing to make a comment?
I'll make a comment.
Sure, Kathy.
I like it the way it is. I think the American Legion and the Red Cross are also important. I would vote to keep all that on there.
Okay.
I'd like to follow up my comment.
Sure, Jordan, go ahead.
Catherine, like you, 30-year Army veteran who's seen a lot of combat, I am wholeheartedly, and a member of Post 5112, I'm all for this addition to the memorial. I think it's great, and I think the work that the Memorial Friends of the Arch have done has been amazing. Having said that, if we want to talk about honoring Carmel residents, that's one thing. If we want to talk about honoring veterans, that's another thing. And the definition of a veteran is those people who have served in the armed forces of the United States. I'm not saying, I'm going to take nothing away from the important work that all the other people that served our country in a million different ways have done, but they're not veterans. And there's a very distinct distinction between those. Also, I think as Richard mentioned, almost every war memorial, or maybe every war memorial, is usually dedicated to those present, past, fallen, and alive, who fought in that era or were alive during that era. So I think the mention of those people that fought from Carmel is great, and then opening up the aperture to those who died in the service of their nation is also very appropriate. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, Carol, did you have any more comments or?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm certainly not an expert on who's a veteran, so I'm going to defer to Board Member Croman on that. And my only questions. I think that there's a lot of information on the plaque itself, and the way it looks there, I think the design is basically great. I like it, the idea of it setting in stone, but I feel like it's getting a little too big, and I'd be curious if we could reduce the size of it by about 80%, or not 80%, excuse me, 20%. So it's about 80% of what it is. And I know there may be an issue with lettering, but I'd like to see that explored, simply because, you know, the planter used to be the horse trough, and it's taking up such a large portion of it. I would prefer to have it a little more minimal, but I do appreciate all the information that it gives people to understand, you know, all that information about who this is dedicated to and who constructed it and who designed it. So
can I respond to that?
You may. I'll open up the public hearing for Richard to just comment.
I agree with you. It looks big in there. And as I designed it, based on what I know now, that was the minimum size to get all the words in at 16-point type, which I was told was the smallest they could do. I will now engage with plaque manufacturers and see if it's possible to have. See, if you get much smaller, you end up doing photo etching. We don't want photo etching. And they do that on bronze plaques. And you've seen that, I'm sure. But I like to keep it as raised letters. So I'm perfectly happy to try to see if we can get it smaller, because, I agree. It is a little large for the space, but as I say, it seemed to be what we needed to get it all in. And, it's essentially a fairly, it is wordy, but it's a historic plaque that covers a lot of information and a lot of people. So I'm absolutely, I'll try to see if we can get it that way. About 20% smaller would be.
That's what I'm thinking. I think that could work better. And then, Richard, do you have any comments on Board Member Croman's issues with the idea of the veterans? I think maybe it would help understanding some of these other people that aren't clearly part of the armed services, what they did and how they contributed. You have the YMCA mentioned, the Knights of Columbus mentioned. I guess the Commission for Relief in Belgium it's a UN, obviously that was before the UN, but it's some sort of international group that gave relief to war victims in Belgium. Or
there was a lot of money raised here in Carmel for that group prior and after the war. That was a very popular commission. And
so
people.
I think it'd be helpful to understand whether these were they in the war zone itself? Is that what we're supposed to understand?
I can't answer those questions for you. Ian Martin would be the person who with his research and maybe speaking, well, there aren't many people, there aren't anybody left from that era. So, okay. Well,
it sounds like
I can't say.
Okay, maybe we can, since I think you said it could be made in a month. Maybe we continue the item and you come back with that information and whether we can reduce the size, and then we could approve it at the next meeting, and then you could move forward with the fabrication.
That would be fine. But there was addressing Member Croman's. So as I said, this monument is. We have multiple. We have the monuments in Devendorf Park. We have one to World War II, Korean War, the war in Vietnam. They don't all have names. I believe the Korean War monument does not have names. The others do. And then we have that piece from 2000, from 9/11. But this monument has really come, it's sort of the Uber war memorial, war monument in Carmel. And as I said, over time, it's become, I believe, and we believe, it is a monument and a memorial and honoring, as you said, all who have served in any of the wars and all who have died. So that's just to address that question.
Okay, well, I guess if that, I mean, it is dedicated and designed for the World War I battle, or that war. So I understand it can be dedicated to everyone. If it's dedicated to everyone, then there's be more names than we could possibly put on a plaque, right? I mean,
well, the names are already on the plaques in Devendorf Park. Those names.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you were thinking this as a general monument, you wouldn't put specific names on it.
Okay. Oops.
Yeah, may I speak too?
Sure.
I'm thinking maybe a solution to try and hurry this along, because I know you have a deadline of November 11th, and there's not a lot of time, that if we went with, remember Croman's suggestion and just did the armed services names and reduced it by 20%, there would certainly be no problem then with spacing on the plaque. That's just a compromise.
Yeah. Awesome.
I guess I'd be comfortable with that if that's the consensus, but I guess we could form the motion as a continuance and allow staff to approve it administratively if they come back with those changes. If they chose to they still want to include the names, then they can come back to us. Does that make sense?
I'd like to mention that we need to be sure it's big enough that it could be read easily.
That's true too.
Also, sorry, with regards to timing, the intended presentation is 2022, November 2022, right?
No,
21.
21.
Oh, 2021. Okay.
The cornerstone was laid in 2021, and then I think they finished it up in 2024, or I think it took a while to build.
Okay.
1924. Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing if there's no more questions of Richard, and again, bring it back to the board. We've had some discussion. Is there a motion someone wants to formulate about this, whether it's a continuance or a vote on what's before us?
Can I take a stab at it?
Sure.
Okay, so with regards to DR 21207 World War II Memorial Plaque, consideration of the determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards and the treatment of historic properties for design review, DR 21207 World War I, for the installation of an additional World War I Veterans Memorial Plaque on a Carmel stone plinth set in the soil on the west side of the monument, located within the median of Ocean Avenue and the east side of San Carlos Street. Conditional approval based on the following. Rename the term plinth with base for clarity, include the names of veterans only, and based on the reduced number of names on the plaque, reduce the size of the plaque appropriately while still being easily read by the public.
I'll second that.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Catherine.
Catherine. Okay, can I just want to pause it and have the applicant respond. Is that something that's acceptable to you, Richard, or would you like to come back to us and make a case for retaining those names?
It's not for me to say. I will have to consult with the members of the American Legion Post and the Friends of the Memorial and see. Taking those few names out is not going to shrink it. I mean, we don't get 20% off.
Okay.
And it's conditional. As I say, I'm not sure of the technical limitations of making plaques these days. It would still be readable at 20% less. I mean, I was reading it without my reading glasses today, so it should work.
Okay.
Yeah, but technically, I have to check to see if we can reduce it and they can still cast it, because I do not want to go to this etching.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'll close the public hearing again. We do have a motion and a second on the floor, and I'll just entertain one more discussion. It sounds like there's still some things to be decided. So
Mr. Chair, could I sort of throw a couple clarifications in there for the board? So if there's a motion and a second to approve, conditional approval or otherwise, to approve the project, that would be the approval by the HRB. So if the applicant was not happy with that and they wanted to add names, then their next course of action would be an appeal.
Got it.
Because
so
this would be an approval.
I think that would, and just to state the obvious, that would probably take too long and miss the deadline. So
one option, I think perhaps, Mr. Chair, you were going there, one option for the motion would be to continue it 1 month, and with direction to the applicant to either decide on going to just as board member Croman said, essentially, do they want to go to that proposal of renaming the plinth as a stone base, veterans only, and reducing the size by 20% while still readable, or do they want to make the case for the names? And then the HRB could make that final decision at the next hearing, assuming that gives the applicant enough time to get the work done, which I think it does based on the timeline that they gave us, but we'd want to confirm with them.
Okay, well, I think that's my opinion of what should happen, but we do have a motion, a second. Does the person who made the motion, Jordan, wish to amend it, or should we vote on this?
I mean, I think if we've got a first and second, I think we should vote on it. If we,
well, yeah, you would have to, we're going to vote on it unless you're willing to change the motion. But if you're not, we can vote on it.
Can we have a pre-vote?
Okay, I think.
You can't do a pre-vote.
We can make a comment though before we vote, which in my comment is that I think I'd prefer to continue it and not to disrespect any of the motion itself, but I feel like there's more information we need to make a final decision. And it sounds like if we wait 1 month, they can still make the deadline. Any other comments before we vote? Or
well, Mr. Chairman, I hesitate because the timing is already mid-August, and these things have ways of not happening, which is why I decided to go with the motion. However, I respect your viewpoint too, and if you feel and the rest of the board feels that we have time to postpone this for 1 month, someone mentioned asking staff to approve it. I don't know if that's something that the motion maker would agree to.
Yeah, I agree, Catherine. I think the issue is, time, and I don't want to try and steamroll this process if it's not in accordance with the applicant's desires. But I think, if they're trying to get this job done, let's get it done. And these are fairly minor things.
okay, I mean, could I suggest something then? Could we amend the motion to simply allow for if they chose to reduce it by 20% in size and only include the names of veterans on the plaque, then staff can approve that administratively. If they don't agree with that, they have to bring it back to the board.
That's good.
That's good.
I'm fine with that.
So if I could add a little bit of clarification in there. So if that's the will of the board, essentially what you're doing is you're approving it with those modifications that board member Croman approved. If the applicant doesn't wish to make that their project, they will either need to appeal to the board or reapply, most likely. So it would be, we wouldn't re-agendize something that was already approved by the HRB unless it was a new application.
I'm just trying to save time in case.
Yeah, I understand. I'm trying to think creatively of a way to do that as well.
Can we open it back up to let the applicant speak one more time?
Sure. I'll open up public hearing. Richard, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, if we got approval on the second week of September, that gives us 60 days.
It will be the next board meeting, I believe, will be on the 20th of September.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Less than 60 days.
Content.
But and we can order, I mean, they say it's 30 days, but I'll have to get more information on really what the timeline is for getting these plaques made. I'm really not sure. It is getting tight. I mean, we thought we were going to be up last month, and now it's this month, and now it'll be next month. So we'll try to make it, obviously. Sorry, can't be more help. Can we work on this? Can you have a Zoom meeting on this item earlier than the 20th of September? That's a request.
I'm trying to, maybe I think you answered our questions. Thank you, Richard. So I'll close the public hearing again, and maybe Brandon can jump in on this too, but it sounds like it's the more we give to staff to make an administrative approval, then the better, right? That
would be correct. Essentially, if the HRB says, essentially what we would need would be the HRB to say, you're okay with either outcome, either the version as approved or as recommended by Board Member Croman, or the version that you're looking at right now, with some sort of proof provided by the applicant that all the names make sense and that the size is as small as possible. If you give leave to staff to approve either version, I think that's really what you're looking at. Otherwise, we would just be looking at approving what the board said they were okay with. I did hear Mr. Kreitman mention the possibility of a special meeting. Of course, that's at the discretion of the chair who sets the agenda for the HRB. The chair of the HRB can call and approve a special meeting outside of the regularly scheduled meeting. So if that was something that the board was interested in, we could work with all of you and schedule that as well.
Hey, Brandon and Chair Dreyer, can we do this? Can we pause this discussion, continue on the rest of the meeting? That will allow Mr. Crichton to make some calls, and then we can come back and vote on it.
That's absolutely something that's allowed. It's called trailing the item. So we would trail the item to the end of the meeting. We would not close it. And so the chair would just have to approve that.
okay? I'll open up the public hearing again. Then Richard? Do you think that's
Well, I
that's
don't
some of the
think I'm-
information you can get before the end of the meeting, or
The only thing, before the end of this meeting, the only party that I can get any additional information from would be Ian Martin, if I can get a hold of him. And I believe he has a family obligation right now.
Yep.
As far as getting in touch with plaque manufacturers and finding out what their capabilities are and whether we can shrink it, et cetera. It's 5 o'clock West Coast time. I'm not even going to try. So I can do it tomorrow. So,
okay. So it doesn't sound like it makes sense to do that. Okay.
All right.
If you
If you want to get squirrely, then we'll withdraw the motion and we'll just hope for the best. And you guys can present next month. So I'll withdraw the motion.
So we would need, Mr. Chair, we would need a new motion to continue the item. First, we'd need the seconder to agree on
That's
with,
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
and then we need a new motion to continue the item to next month.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to reschedule or have a special short meeting if that makes sense, but it sounds like that's what we should do. So I will entertain a motion for continuance.
I will move to continue the item, understanding that we will have a special meeting so that the timeline can be met.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I should have given a roll call. I'm sorry. Margie, I'm going to give a roll call.
Yes, Board Member Croman,
Aye.
Board Member Galtieri,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Aye.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
Chair Dyer.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go on to the next item on the public hearing list, DR 21114, the conservatory. Consideration of a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for a design review application, DR 21114, the conservatory for a remodel and structural seismic retrofit of an historic structure known as the China Arts Building, which includes new acoustic infrastructure as well as a new elevator and stairway additions, a new skylight, exterior windows located on Dolores Street, 2 northwest of 7th in the Central Commercial Zoning District and Downtown Conservation District. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair and Historic Resource Board members. So the subject site is a 4,000 square foot lot located at Dolores 2 northwest of 7th in the Downtown Conservation District. The subject building is known as the China Arts Center and is listed on the Carmel Inventory of Historic Resources. It's constructed in the Mission Revival style, designed by H.H. Winner, and constructed by Hugh Comstock. It's significant under criteria 3 as it embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, region, or method of construction. The character defining features of the building include the gable roof massing with wood bracket overhangs, the clay tile roof, the quatrefoil window, grand entrance, paired windows on either side of the entrance, the Carmel stone base, entrance vestibule, wood gates, and the arch windows with steel sashes on the north elevation, which are not visible. The applicant is proposing a seismic retrofit and interior remodel on the inside of the structure, and then on the exterior, they're proposing the addition of a new glass sound lock entry for soundproofing and rooftop additions, including a stairway and elevator addition on the roof. Seth Bergstein of Past Consultants evaluated the project for its consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards. Mr. Bergstein found that standards 1, 2, 3, and 5, or the project is consistent with standards 1, 2, 3, and 5. Standards 4 and 8 are not applicable, and as if conditioned appropriately, it will be consistent with standards 6, 7, 9, and 10. So standard number 6 speaks to emphasizing repair over replacement, and that any replacement and repair be done in place to match the existing. Recommended conditions number 1 and 2 have been included accordingly, that says any type of repair be done in place to match the existing. Standard number 7 speaks to using chemical treatments. The recommendation from the phase 2 evaluation states that physical treatments to repair existing cement plaster details, wood details, and steel window sashes will be undertaken with accepted methods for a given substrate in keeping with the standard. Under recommended condition of approval number 3, that language has been restated in the recommended condition, as well as the guidance to utilize preservation briefs 6, 13, 21, and 23 in undergoing the repairs. Standard number 9 speaks to additions and alterations to the structure. With respect to the rooftop additions, there is a new skylight proposed, which will not be visible. There is an elevator addition that will be visible from 7th. However, according to the phase 2 evaluation, the bulk and massing of this features in scale with the surrounding rooftop projections and appears appropriate. It is rather hard to see, but it is this little feature right up there where the laser pointer is. On the west elevation or the rear of the building, there are a number of new windows throughout. However, these windows are at the least primary elevation and face an alley and considered appropriate and is a appropriate addition for the new windows. Appropriate location for the new windows, excuse me. Along the Dolores Street entry, a new sound lock door system is proposed. It will be located within the entry. The purpose of this is to provide soundproofing for the new use. The phase 2 report recommends 2 conditions. The first being to minimize the amount of glazing and reducing the thickness of the muttons for the new glass system. And that's to allow for the character defining features within the entry vestibule to be less obscured and keep them visible from the right of way. And then recommended condition number 5 speaks to providing a detail of how that feature will be attached to the building. Just as an example of how something similar has been done in town, we have a Sunset Center with the original character defining features still visible through a glass system, even though it has been altered. In staff's opinion, the Sunset Center edition is much more significant than what's being proposed. However, this is an illustrative example of how this can be achieved successfully. And with standard 10, as discussed under standard 9 and with the implementation of recommended condition number 5, provided that the new sound lock entry could be removed in the future without compromising the historic structure, the addition would be consistent with standard number 10. So the site is also located in the Downtown Conservation District. If you're able to read the numbers on the map, I know they're a little bit small. The project site is number 27. It's right here. Staff made the appropriate findings in the staff report. In staff's opinion, the project is consistent with the required findings. So staff's recommendation is to adopt a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yep, thank you, Evan. Any questions of Evan? I just had a question. The rear windows on the back what kind of windows are they? Are they specified?
I believe they're steel.
Okay.
Yes, steel windows.
Okay.
And Evan, the muttons that you're talking about are the muttons that are holding the glass, that large glass plate in there?
Correct. These ones,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I'm not sure. Oh, I think the laser pointer disappeared on me.
Yeah, gotcha.
But these divisions
Yep.
right in here.
Okay. Any other questions of Evan? Okay, so hearing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here? Mr. Carver, I believe, is among us.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. Robert Carver, Studio Carver Architects. We have basically read the conditions and find them acceptable and are here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions of Mr. Carver?
I guess
guess
I have a question.
Go ahead, Carol.
Not being in favor of the glass on the outside and keeping the lovely wood gates having to be open. Is there a way to soundproof the building from the inside?
Well, yeah, we're actually doing that also. It's a lock, so it's a double system. So we will be soundproofing the original front doors, but we need more than that. So we have both.
Okay, and then in terms of the special conditions, what do you think you can reduce the size of the muttons and or the mullions and enlarge the glass area in the entry? Is that?
So we have to address the thermal conditions, the structural conditions, and the acoustic conditions of the building. And so we will absolutely do the smallest possible mullions. And I was looking before our site meeting at the way that they constructed the Sunset Center, which was our inspiration actually for this solution. And they actually have glass mullions and a spider system. So if we are in contact with the structural engineer and the acoustical engineer exactly to try to figure out the best way to do this. Normally in recording studios, they don't care what it looks like. Most recording studios are like in strip malls or some kind of horrible place. And so this is unusual for them to try to address the aesthetic issues, but we're very sensitive to that, and we will certainly make the transparency as much as we can.
Yeah, I think that's the key. It's not just the mullion size, but if you can increase the glass area itself.
It's right now 88. It's right now 88% glass as shown.
Yeah,
which is, not bad.
It's a glass wall. Okay. Is there any other questions of the architect?
Sure, Dar. I want to revisit Board Member Hall's comment. So, that wall of glass definitely changes the entire character of the front portion of the building. So there's no way that you can achieve the same effect with putting a sound barrier or more sound barriers in the interior than then glassing off that entire front architectural portion with all the finishes and everything?
Well, we actually were going to do that initially. And at that time, we had a balcony over that went all the way around the inside, but that didn't meet the water management rules for square footage. So we had to eliminate the balcony on the sides and at the front of the building. So what the problem we have is that we don't want to, that's our main recording space. And we don't want to have this big glass tower inside because it's 2-story glass. If you remember, there's a big window above the doors. So, you know, it would look pretty bad on the inside. We don't want to ruin the inside. And I don't know where you even stop and start because it's all, it's all sculpted, you know. Everybody thinks it's wood, but I think it's all actually cement plaster. The beams are actually faux wood inside, and they're cement plaster. We went up. They're painted and they're beautiful, but they're not real.
Okay.
Another question I have is about changing the hinges on the outer gates so that they swing out rather than in. Isn't there some sort of code against having gates sticking out into the sidewalk area?
Maybe that's a question for Brandon to respond to.
Yeah, I don't think they'll stick out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's correct. They would not be able to be out into the public right away, but I'll look to Mr. Court to speak to that a little bit because I'm not sure that they would.
They don't. Yeah, you can put the plan up, Evan.
Mr. Carver, we'll let the staff answer just if you would.
So it was my understanding that there was not, the gates were not proposed to be changed as my reading on the plan. Also, it did not appear that way in the phase 2 evaluation. Phase 2 report states, it does reference the wood entry gates will remain in the open position. The wood gates will be retained but left in the open position. Maintenance and conservation of the historic wood entry gates is recommended as the entry gates are a character defining feature. In looking at the drawings, this might be a little hard to see. We have existing gates to remain. And then I believe there's another detail. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but it appears that the bracket, right? Let me see if I can. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Yeah, I apologize.
Screen, yeah.
My mistake. It appears in this elevation that the bracket is on the sidewalk facing side of the entry and that the gate's opening inward. So that was my understanding going into the report.
Can you tell us, is that the plan, is that the gates are meant to swing in or are they meant to swing out?
They are basically let me just explain something. By code, they're supposed to swing out. But with the historic code, you do get some leeway for things like that. So we were going to fix them the way they are as they're shown. So I think I was wrong when we were on the site visit. I think I explained it incorrectly. So basically, they're not changed, but they're fixed. So they don't swing because we can't have them blocking exit requirements. So they'll stay as they are, but they'll be fixed open because we can't close them because they don't swing out. And like you said, if they swing out, they not only swing off the property into the right of way, but then we have to switch them all around. So I think what I'm sorry that I got a little mixed up. We were originally thinking of doing that. We decided, no, we'll just open them and fix them open. And I think that's really the best solution for many reasons.
And that, if I can ask, then that reason for fixing them is because of the glass that you hope to put in. Is that correct?
No, it's because they don't meet code because they swing in and not out. Exit doors have to swing out in commercial buildings, outswing. They swing in. So if you had a fire in the building and they swing in, you have the potential of people piling up at the doorway trying to get out. So it's a life and safety issue.
Okay.
Board Member Hall, just to add a little bit of clarity from the staff perspective. So regardless of whether the glass was there, they would be required by fire code to fix those gates in the open position because of an egress issue.
And this is because now, because of the permit process and doing all these alterations, that comes to us to look at. Whereas if it was just remaining the way it was, no one would have ever even questioned it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant's architect? Hearing none, is that all you'd like to comment on, Rob?
Yeah, I just would like to say the one thing that, you know, I'm hoping that the board and the city can, you know, support the huge investments that are being made in this building. It was somewhat neglected, as you could see, it was all filthy and the pigeons were living in there. And so this is an investment for not only the building, but also for Carmel.
Thank you very much. Any other person wanting to address the board on this application may do so now.
Anybody who wants to participate, if you're on Zoom, you can unclick your mute button, bottom left-hand corner. And if you're on your phone, there looks like there's one mobile phone, *6 will unmute your device. And it looks like, Mr. Chair, as I was rambling to buy some time there, nobody has unmuted or raised their hand. So I think you're probably good from a public comment perspective.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing then and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, Catherine, I'd like to speak on this particular project. It's a handsome building, historic, one of the nicest ones on Dolores Street in this particular block. And I'm not concerned about the glass whatsoever. If you read the consultant's recommendation on page 7, he says, while the proposed glazed entry system will allow the character defining features of the grand entrance to be visible, the steel framing system appears to be thick and may obscure the historic entrance details. And I think that question has been, on the part of the consultant, has been addressed by the applicant. And to me, this project is very exciting when you think of a recording studio, a music center in another one of our former banks. Is a great example of adaptive use and should actually be given some kind of a prize for creative thinking. So I don't think we should get hung up on the glass. It works well at Sunset Center. There are issues that this particular use requires. And as the consultant has told us, the entry character defining features of that beautiful, gorgeous entry are not going to be hindered. They will just be seen through glass. So I'm in favor of this project, and I'm interested in anything our chair has to say in terms of the architectural details that he might have. But in general, I support it as it's presented with the recommendations that have been given by the consultant.
Yeah, I support the glazing too, Catherine. And I think you see this not only at Sunset Center, but when you're dealing with a lot of historic buildings, for example, in Europe, where they're obviously much, much older, they often use these transparencies in glass to create spaces and add to these historic structures without really, harming the historic nature of them. So it's a great way to intervene, solve functional problems, and yet maintain the historic integrity of a resource. But I'll entertain other comments.
Yeah, I hear what you both say, and I have to thank Mr. Carver's comments about, the amount of work that's going to go into preserve this building, which is awesome. But I heard two things. First of all, I heard that you can do it on the inside. It's just an inconvenience. And I also heard that, there's some discussion about, this is done for conservation purposes and other buildings. It's not being done for conservation in this purpose. It's being done as an additional sound barrier. And what we're going to do is we're going to take, for the convenience of putting things on the outside versus putting it on the inside, we're going to take a gemstone of a building and radically change the look of it. You may be able to see some details through the glass, but the reality is you're not going to see the same type of feel and the same type of details through the glass. So I would really ask if, applauding all the other efforts that are happening, and everything else seems to be fine, to include the elevator shaft, I would really ask the applicant to go back and say, here's a solution that we figured out that won't affect that.
Okay.
I'm wondering if nothing was done on the front, if we could then keep the gates just like they are.
I don't think, I'll speak to myself or for myself as an architect. I think the code would probably, if you did that much work on the interior, they would probably require upgrades to the egress of the building, which would require those gates to remain open. That's my interpretation, but I'll let Brandon respond too.
That's why you're the chair. That is correct. You are correct on that one.
Bad. They do open to the outside, just not very far.
Yeah, and I don't think you want to have panic hardware stuck on those historic gates either to make them work.
What's that?
Oh, panic hardware might be required, so that all you need to do is push them, which would not be a sightly thing on those historic gates. I'd rather see them in place, but not anything attached to them. Is there any other comments? Kathy, do you have any comments?
No, I think it's a good plan. I agree with Catherine. I'm okay with the glass in there. I think it's reasonable. I think it'll look fine. It looks fine at Sunset Center.
Okay, thank you. I would just add that I think, supporting adaptive reuse is really important in allowing flexibility for people that are willing to invest. And I think, the glass wasn't done for preservation purposes per se, but it is, done so that you can adaptively reuse the building. And then there'll be extensive restoration that are a part of this. As I think the architect stated, it's a fairly rundown building, and this process will really brighten it up and improve it significantly. So that's why another reason why I'm supporting it. And I do support the conditions of approval in the draft resolution. Is there any comments, or I'd entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair. This is a resolution of the board issuing a determination of consistency with the Secretary's standards for a remodel and structural seismic retrofit of an historic structure known as the China Art Center. And all the information that is included in the staff report resolution for today. And also the 6 conditions of approval as prepared by staff.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, I will second it. And I think we're ready for a roll call. Roll call, please. Margie.
Yes, Board Member Croman.
No.
Board Member Galtieri.
Yes.
Board Member Hall.
No.
Board Member Pomeroy.
Yes.
And Chair Dyer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to DR 170, Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa, consideration of a determination of a consistency with the sector interior standards for the treatment of historic properties for design review DR 21170, Carmel Beach Hotel, for exterior modifications to the existing Colonial Terrace Inn, including window and door replacements, repainting, site accessibility, and landscape modifications located at the northeast corner of San Antonio Street and 13th Avenue in the R1 district. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brandon Swanson with the Community Planning and Building Department, here to present Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa, formerly known as a Colonial Terrace, for determination of consistency for renovation to the property. A little bit of background on the property. As I said, is formerly known as a Colonial Terrace Inn. Construction took place between the 30s and the 50s in various stages, consists of 7 buildings, A through G. It is listed as a local historic resource. However, buildings F and G are not part of the historic fabric of the village. It does qualify under the theme of architectural development in Carmel and economic development as an excellent example of visitor serving accommodations from the 30s. As you noticed on your site visit, it's in the traditional East Coast Eastern building style. Project description. So basically what's going on is the rebranding, extensive interior renovation, upgrades to ensure accessibility with current code, and an addition of some amenities, including a spa, a gym, and a bar that would be for guests only. This would not be a public spa or public gym, and reuse of the parking lot as valet parking. There are some minor exterior modifications. All the windows and doors are being replaced to upgrade them to be consistent. There are some minor windows and door modifications with new replacement and removal of some doors and windows, some balcony extensions, repainting. And as I mentioned, there's some site accessibility and landscape improvements as well. This does qualify as a major modification, and Chapter 17.32 does require the HRB to make a determination of consistency with Secretary of Interior Standards. This project will still go to the Planning Commission for the discretionary approval consideration, but we are looking for a determination of consistency. So I'll run through the project site and some of the project components here for you. Highlighted in green are the buildings that I mentioned are historically significant. Buildings A through E. This is effectively the upper part of the property on the Carmelo side. Buildings F and G are not. Those are down on the San Antonio side. You can see the areas where the improvements are taking place. The red areas are accessible hotel rooms. The blue line is the accessible path of travel that will get you through the property with the appropriate ADA access. And the tan and brown areas are the amenity areas, such as lawns and spas and bars and restaurants and things like that, just to give you an idea of how the site is laid out. Running through the actual modifications briefly. So you can see in building A, existing on the top, proposed on the bottom, adding a shutter that's missing, removing 2 windows. You can see where those are going away, adding a new window, extending the balcony over here, and changing a window to a door. So all that's taking place inside this red oval here. Building B, no proposed changes. Building C, minor change, removing a window and a door. You can see existing and proposed. Building D, no changes to existing openings. Building E, this is down on San Antonio, I'm sorry. Replacing the garage doors with windows, same openings. So the openings are being retained, but it's going from hard, solid garage doors to windows because this is the area where you've got some of the amenities. Removing 2 windows, you can see where those are going away, and then adding a new door. So again, we have existing on the left-hand side here, proposed on the right-hand side. Your windows are going away and it's becoming a door. Building E, here's the interior, just so you can see the amenities. These are the garage doors that we're talking about. The openings are staying the same. This would be the fitness room. Again, guests only. This is not a gym for anybody to join. This is just for guests as an amenity. Buildings F and G are being connected by what we're calling the hyphen here, a hyphen connection. You've got your spa amenity here. So this again is your gym where we have the garage doors down here. And then the last 2 buildings are being connected by a hyphen to allow for connectivity. So speaking to the Secretary of Interior standards, again, you're all very familiar with these, so I don't need to beat them up. But this project is applicable standard is rehabilitation. We're all familiar with rehabilitation, returning a building or structure to the state of utility through repair work, upgrades. So we've got 10 standards, both for the structures themselves and the site improvements. In combined between the building alterations and landscaping alterations, all 10 standards do apply in some way. With respect to the buildings, it's consistent with all the standards. The only one that is not applicable is standard 8. And for the landscaping alterations, as proposed, it was not consistent with standards 4 through 5 and 9. However, as recommended to be conditioned, if the board does choose, would be found consistent as long as those conditions are carried forward to the Planning Commission. Just to run through those conditions briefly, repainting guidelines. This speaks to how the painting would be done. It would be done gently with eco-friendly materials, and then would be put back to match existing. Painting and matching all wall cladding, sash and pane configurations, and aluminum clad windows and doors. This would be to ensure that the windows and doors are all period correct and consistent. Just to clarify, in case there's a question, aluminum clad means that it's wood inside with aluminum wrapped around the outside. The wood gives you the ability to have a profile that you would normally see on a wooden window. The aluminum cased around the outside gives it longevity and makes sure that it's easier to maintain. So from the distance, and actually from pretty close, you cannot tell that it's aluminum, especially once it gets a little bit of dust on it. It's paintable, and it's hard to tell that it's not aluminum. Garage door openings would be retained. Again, these are conditions of approval recommended. Garage door openings to be retained. They're, like I said earlier, they'll be changed to windows. There is a white picket fence and a gate with an arbor over the top of it on the Carmelo side. That would need to stay. It is important to the elevation and the primary view of the structure. There's mortar color that needs to differentiate any new stonework. Artificial turf will need to look like real turf. Repair and retain bricks. There are some walkways that need to have some work done to be ADA compliant. And so any bricks that are added will be added on the outside, and the bricks would need to match in kind and differentiated by mortar. And then lastly, to ensure that all of the rest of the site work is consistent, there will need to be a requirement for a landscape / site survey to be done to make sure there's no other landscape or site features that are important to the significance of the property. And that would need to be done and adhered to before any sort of building permits were issued. So with that, staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution issuing a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for this project, including exterior modifications and landscape work to be done at the currently Colonial Terrace Hotel, but will be known as the Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa. With that, staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions, staff?
I have a question, Brandon. Who is to do the landscape conditions survey? What person is going to be assigned that task?
Great question. It will be Meg Clovis, our hired consultant through the city.
And she didn't do it this time for what reason?
It wasn't done initially through the building because we were considering the buildings, but then she did provide some feedback on some of the important landscape features, like we talked about the white picket fence and the arbor and the brickwork. But we felt that given the size of the property, it would be more appropriate to come with a full, thorough evaluation that addressed all those items specifically, as opposed to part of the structure review, which she did. So she gave us comments on all those things, like the walkways and the picket fence and the arbor, which is why we have those conditions of approval. But we want to make sure that it's really, there's a second review that's done specifically focusing on the landscape and the site work.
And that will go to the Planning Commission.
That will accompany the Planning Commissions. That's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do notice, Brandon, speaking of the landscape, I'm looking at the landscape plan here, and they do show, when we're out on site, we're talking about where the artificial turf would go, and they are proposing it where you thought it wouldn't be allowed. So I'm just making.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily where it wouldn't be allowed, but I did not think it was there, and I apologize. That was my not knowing the project very well, jumping in here last minute. But that is where it's proposed right now. That's the sort of thing that as far as the city policy goes, we don't have any bans on artificial turf. It's really a consistency with neighborhood character. So we would look at that from a design perspective at the Planning Commission, but then this report that Meg Clovis is going to prepare for us would speak to how it would impact the historic landscaping and site as well. So we'd have two ways to look at that. And if it's not something that's approvable, then it wouldn't be recommended to be approved.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions of Brandon?
Oh, and thank you, actually, Chair Dyer, and I'm sorry, you sent that made me recognize also, I mentioned on the site tour that all the palm trees on Carmelo site are coming out, and that larger one that kind of stands on its own is also coming out as well. I did follow up on that. So all those palm trees are coming out, or proposed to be coming out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a off the wall question. Do we have any purview over changing the name of the place? Could we keep it the Colonial Inn and Spa rather than changing the name?
I don't believe that the HRB does have that purview. The name isn't something that's part of the historical significance of the structure. Certainly you can make that recommendation to the applicant. You can make that recommendation to the Planning Commission, but that's a business decision. I don't think the HRB has the authority to weigh in on that.
Thank you.
And then once Ms. Clovis does the landscape assessment, does that just go to the staff for approval?
No, that's a great question. So the staff will get it. We will review it. Of course, if we have any concerns about it, we'll share those with her. However, what will come out of that are potentially additional conditions of approval for the Planning Commission consideration. So we will have that done prior to the Planning Commission hearing on this, and it will be incorporated as part of the staff report that goes to the Planning Commission.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here to present?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm David Fink. Hi, Chair Dyer. Hello, board members. Good afternoon. I know some of you, I own Cantonetta Luca in Carmel on Dolores Street, and I own L'Auberge Carmel, and we opened that business in 2004, and Michelin one-star aubergine restaurant that we're quite proud of at the hotel, and also Gourmet Fest, and now Colonial Terrace. You know, I've been either in an historic house or owned historic buildings almost my whole life. I grew up in an 1848 Greek Revival plantation house in Virginia that my parents restored and had put on the National Register of Historic Houses. And in 2002, when I bought the Sundial Lodge, my brother and I, who by the way is a restoration architect, did a 12-month restoration of that, opening as L'Auberge Carmel and Aubergine Restaurant in 2004. So we'll start our 18th year August 1st. And by the way, my brother Jeff is quite an accomplished historic architect, as he's been commissioned to restore many of the Rudolph Schindler houses in Los Angeles. In 2004 and 2005, the Historic Resource Board presented an award for us for our restoration of L'Auberge Carmel. So we're very, very excited about this property. It is quite old, and 90% of our project here is an interior remodel. But we're going to be very sensitive to the facades, which I love, and the landscape, which I love. I'm very excited because I finally have a little bit of room around our buildings, because as you know, L'Auberge Carmel is landlocked on 2 lots of record, and it's just an incredible site. So we're very, very excited to start the project. We've hired a great group of consultants including Michael Suter, one of the great lighting designers. I got him out of retirement to help on this project, and Michael Arnone, who's done a lot of work in Carmel on the landscape plan, and WRD Architects. Matt's going to talk here in a minute. I believe they've got a long history of restoration of historic buildings, and Osonio Construction, who will be our contractor. So we're hopeful that we can get the resolution approved today and go to planning next month, because at some point we're going to have to close the hotel to do this renovation, and that's going to take 8 or 9 months. And we're hopeful, keep fingers crossed, that we can open in time for summer season next summer. So we're asking for your approval of the resolution today, and I'm here to answer any questions, or Matt Heidel is our architect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fink. Any questions of Mr. Fink from the board? Okay, seeing none, is anyone else wishing to address the board on this application?
Eric, this is Matt with WRD Architects. I just want to add, the entire time we've known this is an R1 zone and the historic status of the site. So we've tried to be really sensitive to the existing facades, especially the ones that you see from the street. And I think one thing that the elevations do, where we are making changes, it's really not very apparent. We've really taken good care to make sure that the building C facades that you see from Carmelo that are really distinctive and really kind of define the character of the site. We're not making any changes to those facades at all. And then, building E, F, and G is the other real street frontage. And we are doing the spa in F and G, but it's really, again, it's just for the hotel guests. And it's just going to be in the lower basement areas, which are right now not being utilized for anything. So yeah, and as far as the exterior work, it is a very challenging site. Just because of the widths of the existing walkways, we're not ADA, and there's a pretty significant slope as you step down from Carmelo to San Antonio. But our hope is that as we can use those ADA improvements, which we need to do, at the same time also, follow the existing pathways, but also make it more beautiful. We did see in the historic report, the informal garden areas, and we can keep that with our plan. So yeah, it's a very exciting site, and we're here to answer any questions too.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Heidel? Hearing none. Is anyone else wishing to address the board on this application? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I believe Director Swanson has a comment to make before we go back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quickly, I completely forgot about this, and thanks to Evan for being so quick on the trigger. He sent me over something. I forgot to say that in 2015 there was a state legislation that was approved by the governor, AB 1164, that actually precludes jurisdictions from denying synthetic grass. It does give jurisdictions some ability to control the design and the material. But there is a requirement to approve that. It's just we do have the ability to say, we want to see a sample and we want to make sure it looks good. So it won't be the stuff you see in front of like a mobile home, but we'll certainly work with the applicant to make sure that it's the correct material and that it looks like grass.
Okay, thanks for that comment. So I'll bring it back to the board now. Is there anyone want to start?
I'll start. I'm reassured that this is in good hands with our two public speakers there. And it seems to be a great improvement to an old buildings, plural, other than wishing it was still the Colonial Inn, because we all go by the names that we know. I think it's commendable what they're going to be doing.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else on the board wishing to make a comment?
I will. It seems what they're doing is in the spirit of the original design and character. And I also think putting the fitness center in the garages that aren't being used and putting windows in there. I think that's an improvement, and it makes the site functional, where right now it's a habitat for spiders probably. So I would be in favor of what they've suggested that they want to do.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also in favor of the project. I think it's being done in a sensitive manner. I wanted to make a minor point of clarification from a statement that was made in the consultant's phase 2 report. And in the section under historic background, Ms. Clovis speculated that the DPR form that was prepared by Kent Seavey back in 2002 might have been in error when he listed the period of significance for this building as 1903 to 1940. And she thought he might have transposed the numbers just by making a clerical mistake. And I did a peer review of Mr. Seavey's survey at that time, and his DPR forms always used 1903, 1940, the dates on any of the building's periods of significance, because in his view, they corresponded to the dates of architectural development that were contained in the historic context statement that was in use by the board at that time. So Mr. Seavey's belief was that buildings in the survey would fall under a general time frame, starting with the founding of Carmel by Devendorf and Powers. And then if you look at the last application.
Oop, we lost you, Catherine. You went mute.
Okay, if you look at the DPR form for the Monterey County Trust and Savings Bank on today's agenda, Richard Janik, who prepared that form, he called the period of significance for that building 1880 to 1940. And that's because he identified the style of the China Art Center as Mission Revival. So I think we can pay attention to the DPR forms that are prepared for us by the consultants and realize the various idiosyncrasies that individuals use. Now, Ms. Clovis would probably relate the period of significance to this building, the Colonial Terrace Inn, whereas Mr. Seavey and Mr. Janik related the period of significance to Carmel's architectural development, which is a whole different story. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. But back to this project, I think the fact that most of the original windows were already replaced 20 some years ago, and the fact that the simple modifications are not on major elevations, I think that and the fact that there will be additional review of the landscape portion of the project, I think we can be pretty comfortable that this will be a successful project when it's completed.
Thank you, Catherine. See, Jordan, would you like to say a few words or?
No, I don't. I completely echo the sentiments of the fellow board members. I think Catherine did a great job summarizing up a lot of things, and I think it's going to be a great improvement on what is already a very cool part of the town.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll just say I also support the project and commend the development team. It's really doing modest modifications to the exterior and really sprucing up a little gem of a hotel at the end of town. And I think it's a great project, and it really keeps the character of what is going on there. So I completely support it. In terms of the windows, yes, like Catherine was saying, they were replaced 20 years ago. So this is going to be a much needed improvement. And I think I also support the conditions of approval. So I, at this point, entertain a motion. Would anybody like to make a motion on the project?
I'll make a motion. DR 21-170 Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa consideration of a determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties for exterior modifications to the existing Colonial Terrace Inn, including window and door replacements, repainting, site accessibility, and landscape modifications. With the modifications or the concerns as reflected by the staff, I move for approval of this project.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'll go to roll call with Margie, please.
Yes, Board Member Croman,
Aye.
Board Member Galtieri,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
Chair Dyer.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
And we'll now move on to the last public item is PS 21191, Lecomte Bergeron, consideration of a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for a design study application for the addition of new exterior windows and doors to an existing historic single-family residence on Lopez Avenue 5, northwest of 4th in the single-family zoning district. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the subject property is located at Lopez 5 northwest of 4th. It was added to the historic inventory in July 2021 and is known as the John A. Cosmas House. It was built in 1961 by Henry Hill and John Cruz. The project proposes a remodel of an existing family room and laundry room to create 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom on the lower level of the residence. The applicant is proposing new exterior windows and doors to accommodate these new rooms. On the north elevation, there's the addition of 1 circular window. The top photos or top elevations are existing, bottoms are proposed. So we have the 1 new circular window, and then on the east elevation, the set of windows below this larger set of windows. On the south elevation, we have a new set of windows next to an existing entry, another set of doors with 2 windows on either side. And then on the west elevation, we have another set of windows and another set of windows. It's my understanding that this feature right here would be located underneath the existing deck on the west elevation. So the Secretary of Interior standards applicable to the project are 1, 3 through 5, and 10, as well as 2 and 9 if conditioned appropriately. Standards number 6 through 8 are not applicable to the project. In respect to standards number 2 and 9, standard number 2 speaks to retaining and preserving the historic character, and number 9 speaks to additions and alterations. Special or recommended condition of approval number 1 has been included, which states that the existing door, color included, copper door hood and light fixture located at the southwestern portion of the residence below the upper level deck shall be retained. That is this feature right here. And then recommended condition of approval number 2 states that the new windows shall be differentiated from the existing windows, and that the trim of the new window shall be painted with a compatible color within the same palette or a lighter or darker shade of the existing trim. So those are the only 2 recommended conditions for the project. And staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution issuing a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Any questions of staff? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I will open the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here?
Yes, I'm the architect, Casey Cullen. The owner is also here, Pierre Lecomte.
Yes, hi everyone. And hi, all the board member, my wife and I, so Victoria Bergeron and myself, Pierre Lecomte, we just purchased this home in Carmel. And so thank you very much for reviewing our plans. And we're very happy with the changes that you suggest. Actually, we think it's a great idea to kind of keep the DNA of the house, and very happy with what you are suggesting. Casey, you want to take it from there?
Sure. Yeah, we're not adding any space to the house. There's this existing family room and laundry room downstairs that they want to convert to bedrooms. And so those will require windows that were never installed. I tried very hard to look at some of the other Henry Hill designs and see how the windows could best be accommodated that would bring light into the living area and respect the original design. Mid-century residential architecture has been the focus of my practice for 30 years, even though I've only been in this area for 3 years.
Okay. Thank you very much then. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on this application? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Anyone want to start us off?
I'd like to start. I think the phase 2 report that was prepared by Ms. Clovis was very well done. And I thought her comment that Henry Hill helped to define the Second Bay region style that was important to Carmel was well put. Just like the craftsman style homes of the 20s that were constructed in the decades before this particular house, I think the design for the original design for this Cosmos house was really aimed to be an extension of nature, as Ms. Clovis put it, where the outdoors flowed into the interior living spaces. She also, Ms. Clovis, talked a lot about the importance to Carmel's architectural legacy. And I have no difficulty as a historian understanding when a property is significant to the life of a person or an event that takes place in a home or building. But in this case, the significance of the design conceived by Henry Hill and his partner, John Cruz, stands out in the context of architectural development. And this house, I think, would qualify. I'm glad it's now going to be listed on the inventory since it's reached 50 years of age. And I support the staff's recommendations and the conditions of approval as they've been laid out in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any other board member want to comment?
I would echo that. I think that the proposed adjustments definitely echo the current theme of the house, and I don't think there's any distraction from the current state. And I would agree with the staff's assessment of the property.
I would ditto that as well. I think I know that historically we're to determine a difference between old and new. With the lower windows on the very front, I would hope that the borders would be just slightly different, because I think it would look very strange if they were very different in terms of paint. So that's just something I'm sure they will be sensitive to.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. I think I had one question of the applicant, if I can just understand. On the front elevation, I'll open the public hearing for the architect to respond. You're using this patina grill for the copper for some things, and I just wanted to declare in the new windows.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because the owners and I had discussed both using patina copper, which is what the panels, the non-window panels are on that elevation, or using Corten steel. which will rust to an orange, dark orange color, which will be similar, kind of similar to the redwood siding. And we ended up using the patina copper that matches the existing house in the drawings, except for one note I had forgotten to change on the elevation. And the historic consultant picked up on that and recommended using the Corten steel so that they were similar, but not the same material.
Okay. And you accept that change?
Yes.
Okay. So in general, I'm supportive of it. I will close the public hearing. Yeah, but it's a fantastic house. It really is. I'm glad it's being handled in a sensitive way. Is there a motion from the board? Does anyone want to make a motion one way or the other on the project?
I think we're all getting a little tired, probably.
No,
I'll go ahead.
Have long meetings like this.
In respect to DS 21191, consideration of a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior Standards for the, and I apologize for butchering this name, Le Comte Bergeron, for the addition of a new exterior windows and doors to an existing historic single-family residence on Lopez Avenue, 5 northwest of 4th Avenue. We go ahead and approve the project as suggested and recommended by the board without adjustment.
Accepting the staff's draft resolution.
Accepting the staff's draft resolution.
Conditions of approval. Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Margie.
Board Member Croman,
Yes.
Board Member Galtieri,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
Chair Dyer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it brief because I don't want anybody nodding off and falling out of their chair.
We're not the planning commission.
I didn't want to say anything, but the commission went till 9 o'clock. Not that not I'm trying to cause a rivalry.
And I don't think we're like
I have no favorite boards or commissions. They're all equally special to me. So just quickly, I mentioned it at the top of the meeting. Tentatively right now in September, we're planned to be back in person in the chambers. That was direction from our city council. It will still be a hybrid option. So people will have the option, people being the public, not our board members. Board members and staff would be expected to be in the chambers, but the public would have the opportunity to join remotely. That is still under discussion. And obviously the way that the pandemic has been going changes from day to day. So we're waiting to see if we get any additional direction. But as of this moment in time, we're planning on being in person in September. And I will certainly update you if that direction changes. Also at the September hearing, I'm excited to say that I've been working with Seth Bergstein and Kent Seavey to set up a training for the Historic Resources Board and staff and any members of the public that frankly want to learn more about preservation here in the village. So I'm working with those two qualified gentlemen to give a presentation / training to the HRB, which I think would be very beneficial for all of us, staff included. And then last, but certainly not least, and it's unfortunate that Marnie wasn't able to be here with us today. She had some personal matters she had to take care of. But I'm happy to tell you that City of Carmel-by-the-Sea was awarded the 2021-22 CLG grant for updating our historic context statement. We received $30,000, which is going to go a long way to getting some good work done on that. And as I discussed with Board Member Galtieri, one of the secrets to getting grants is if you can get some good work done in that first year, you kind of have your foot in the door for next year with the state. So hopefully, not hopefully, we will get some really good work done this year. We'll because grants always have deliverables and timelines and reports you have to turn in with them back to the state. So we'll make sure we follow up on that. And then next year when it comes back around, we'll already sort of be in the door and hopefully we can get some more money for more great work. So I'm really excited about that. Huge kudos to Marnie. She worked really hard on that, did a great job with the application. It was a competitive grant. It wasn't like the free money grants that you hear about, like for housing and things like that. We still had to do a good job, and Marnie certainly did. And the fact that a small little place like Carmel-by-the-Sea got $30,000 should not go unnoticed. So big kudos to her. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Great, Brandon. Thank you. Thank you, Marnie. We're excited about that. And I guess the question would be, when do we start that process and whether we do another RFP or how that will work.
That's a great question. Yes, we will do an RFP. So that's the next step in the process for us is we'll be working on an RFP and get that launched relatively soon. Get somebody on board to help us with that.
Okay, great. Okay, next on the agenda, board member announcements or anything from the board? I have a few things to announce just as part of the AIA Monterey Bay Arts and Architecture lecture series, which we're resuming this year. You can go to artsandarchitecturemonterey.org and you will see upcoming lectures. Our first one is coming up very soon on August 26th, which is going to be on Olaf Dahlstrand, the architect of the Wells Fargo Bank. And it's going to be presented by Pierluigi Serena, who has done previous lectures and is kind of a mid-century maven and wrote a lot of books on mid-century architecture, internationally known. And all the lectures are going to be presented at Hidden Valley Music Seminars, which hopefully everyone's familiar with out in Carmel Valley. It's a beautiful location and a great place for a lecture. And there'll be wine and cheese receptions afterwards, after each lecture. So again, the first one is August 26th, Thursday. They're all occurring on Thursdays. The next one will be September 23rd. And I will be presenting a lecture on my mentor, John Thodas, passed away about 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago now. And especially talking about his work he did in Carmel-by-the-Sea. So that will be fun. And then what we're really excited about is AIA Monterey Bay and Carmel Heritage Society have teamed up and are going to present a home tour. And it's going to be all also in Carmel-by-the-Sea. It's going to have houses that we had actually hopefully one of them that we discussed tonight. Carmel Heritage will have the Walker House on Scenic Road by Frank Lloyd Wright, which everyone is probably familiar with. That will be on the tour. There's the Ayers House, which I believe is on Carmelo. It's a pink house. It's really a beautiful old historic house. I believe we have a board member who has a house that will be on the tour, Carol, which will be great. And we're also having a house, the Henry Hill houses called the Three Sisters, which we visited today. So all three of those are supposed to be on the tour, but it sounded like there was some questions about the one we reviewed tonight. I hope we're able to get that on the tour as well. There'll be Judy Thodas' house on Torrey Street by John Thodas. I'll be on the tour, and a George Brooke Cothlow house who did the Eastwood building. He did Maggie Eastwood's house in Pebble Beach, as well as some really wonderful buildings in Big Sur and Carmel Valley. And he has a house on 7th Street, which will be on the tour as well. And then the final lecture of the series will be October 14th, presented by Richard Olson, who was a former senior editor of Architectural Digest, and he will be doing the lecture on George Brooke Cothlow. So it's going to be a really exciting series, and I hope everyone will be able to attend. And I'll be sending out links to all those where you can get tickets. So thank you. That's it. Is there any other future items we should discuss for the next agenda? Hearing none.
We're all asleep, Eric.
Oh, I know. Okay, I guess that means you're all excited about my lecture series.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Why don't we start the first 2 hours of that right now?
Yeah. That would be good.
Okay, well, thank you all for a great meeting, and we will see you maybe sooner if we have to hear the
okay.
memorial again.
Okay, thank you very much for running a good meeting.
Yeah, well done, Eric, and everybody else. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank
you all have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.